Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Malone, and this is the Lethal Lifestyle Podcast. We're getting ready to kick off a large series of podcasts here. Why? Because I, as a former Special Operations Marine, feel like it's imperative and my moral and ethical duty to tell you, the public, the people, how I view and see the world. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily always going to be right. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to have the most thorough, thought out, or accurate opinion. But I feel as if though my life experiences as a world traveler and as a former MORSOC Marine and as somebody who's worked in the private contracting industry, been to multiple combat zones, been in many impoverished countries, literally dropped myself off in nations all across the globe, 40 plus countries. I feel as if though I have a very unique perspective on the world and the current geopolitical, socioeconomic dynamics that are taking place here within our current time. I'm also a highly certified security professional. I'm a certified protection professional, CPP, studied Homeland Security, emergency management in college. I went to school to be a paramedic, didn't finish paramedic school, but I worked on an ambulance for a small amount of time and I maintained my EMT credentials. The point is that I've seen a lot of things. I've done a lot of things. And as we begin to morph into 2024, I really want to be able to help you make the best choices possible to keep you and your loved ones safe against violence, violent crime, and to be best prepared for anything that might be changing here in the near future in terms of societal ways of living or standards. Now, I want to start today's episode off with just giving an overview of the world and kind of giving you a very brief insight as to what it is that I'm seeing so you can determine if this is for you or not for you. And if it is, great. And if it's not, whatever, then turn it off or leave a bunch of hateful comments. I really don't care. Social media. Social media is good for a lot of things. And I myself am new to the game. Spent 13 years in the military. We didn't put anything on social media. Why? Because we didn't want our enemies knowing what we were doing or who we were. We worked in very sensitive environments. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons as to why you don't want the enemy to know your tactics and procedures. And so, going into the social media game, it's been good for accountability because it allows me to hold myself accountable to all of you, the viewers, the listeners. But then, two, also to myself and my family and my loved ones, because if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to be about it plain and simple. So social media has been good for that. It's also been good for developing a reputation. A couple of days ago, a man asked me how he can validate my integrity. I don't know. Check me out on social media was my first response. So having a good, strong social media profile serves as like your resume to the world, something that people can go and quickly validate who you are, what you say, the things you're doing day in and day out. Just by looking at a profile doesn't necessarily mean that they can validate you, but by following you, for example, that allows them to develop consistency to know, like, and trust you through a period of time. So social media has been really good for that. However, on the other side of things, nobody ever goes on social media. Nobody who's ever successful goes on social media just to blast a bunch of people, put them down, talk a bunch of smack. Anybody who ever talks hateful speech on social media is probably just a loser, quite frankly, who gets too emotionally enveloped in the social media game, which is what my ultimate point here is that when you have this artificial sense of interacting with other human beings, then you're developing this neurochemical disposition. I'll talk about neurochemicals a lot in neurology a lot. I spent 18 months in the traumatic brain injury clinic, flipped my life around, completely changed who I am and what I was doing, completely restructured who I am as a human being. I was going to kill myself. Long story short, I talk about that in a lot of other episodes, I'm sure. Point is that when you have that artificial sense of social interaction, then you're developing a negative neurochemical disposition within your body, which makes you more subject to agitation, erraticism, and ultimately violent behavior. So you need to have positive social engagement with one another. Now, globally, we're at a more isolated point in time than we ever have been at before. All the COVID bullshit and everything else that's currently taking place within our society, dividing us, keeping us agitated is all a part of this social media cycle game that I'm talking about. Doesn't mean that it was originally designed for that, but it is definitely being used and manipulating people to influence their behaviors in that way. So, with that being said, let's talk about Israel and Palestine. If you've never been to Israel or Palestine, if you don't live in Israel or Palestine, look, as a matter of fact, let me just take a step back. It's not Israel and Palestine, it's Israel versus Hamas. Now, don't get me wrong. What Israel is doing to the Palestinians is absolutely horrible. It's atrocious. You don't just blanket bomb a bunch of people. This isn't Vietnam or World War II, really more Vietnam, where you just start slaughtering all the local villagers just because there's a group of guerrilla fighters within the town. That's fucked up. However, at the same time, it's Hamas and Israel. Hamas is Iran. It's not Palestine. The Palestinian people are totally innocent in this, or at least as much as one can be when you're being forced to aid and abet some criminal organization or terrorist organization, but it's Iran and Israel. So, regardless of how you view things, stop getting sucked into the social media game feeling as if though you have a righteous opinion because you don't. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what ethnicity that you prescribe to. Shut the hell up, plain and simple, and start promoting peace, love, and positivity. Both sides are completely wrong in all of this right now, especially with the whole blanket bombing and killing of everybody. However, I digress. Two, the Middle East in the situation that it is itself, completely fucked up. Biden administration completely screwed this up. Obama administration completely screwed this up. The Trump administration was the only one in the last 12 years that actually did anything right. And that was we wiped out ISIS. And we did it quickly and we did it aggressively. However, that again left a power vacuum voids for what? Iran to come in and take over, which developed the supply chains, which allowed them to carry out this attack against Israel to begin with. However, to take it even further back, you look at post World War II, the borders messed up, jacked up, stupid. They should have never been written that way that they are. And I wish that they would change, but they probably never will. So let me take a step further out from the Middle East now and talk about Ukraine and Russia a little bit. NATO had defined borders and boundaries. Why are we encroaching in on Russia's borders? Stop it. It does not surprise me at all that Russia is doing what they're doing, that Putin's doing what he's doing. We saw this taking place all the way back in 2012. It's just such a typical campaign. I wrote a paper about this that I never sent anywhere, and I should have because I literally called all this out, where you had the economic growth post fall of the Soviet Union, and you watched their military technology advance. And as their economy fell apart in the early 2000s, so did their military technology. So what did they do? They did a conventional-ish ground scale invasion of the neighboring country of Georgia. Why? Because it would build their confidence, allow them to test their equipment, and build some morale and boost morale within their people, and they could take over some parts of the local tattered economy to some degree or another. Probably got a lot of foreign investment too for military technology and probably some resources in the area. Then what do? They do an unconventional warfare campaign, an intelligence covert operation style campaign in the annexation of Crimea. Classic doctrine when it comes to go in, instigate the sympathetic local nationals to your cause, rise them up, and then have them as a proxy force conduct the insurrection against the local government, the annexation of that piece of land. What's that do? Opens up seaports, gives them more resources, allows them to boost their economy. As their economy got boosted, so did their military technology. Go into Syria, perfect proving grounds. We could test out whatever we want. Now we're making fine tunes and advancements. Go over to the Central African Republic of Congo, where there's more diamond mines than anywhere else in the world. Set up medical sites. Just happens to be next to every single diamond mine in the area during another insurrection, which the United Nations got kicked out of the Congo because of a bunch of sexual assault charges. The United Nations is the biggest joke in the world. If you ever see those blue helmets, you need to run because you're probably going to get shot. Those people are absolute, it's just such a joke. They never do anything good. Then the Russians come in, they take over, they help quash that rebellion, and then they set up these medical sites next to all these diamond mines. What do you know? Their economy starts going up, their military technology starts going up. Big surprise. Then we start to see the more true conventional invasion of Ukraine. Why? Because NATO's sitting here dicking around, moving in on the borders. We shouldn't be doing that to begin with. Now let's take a even further turn over to the eastern part of the world when it comes to China. Look, Taiwan, as much as I love you all, the whole agreement was that you were going to be absorbed by China at some point post World War II. That was the whole agreement. Now, sure, nobody foresaw, certain geopolitical events taking, place as though they are. But the reality remains is that we keep going back on all these agreements that we're making. Why is America so invested in Taiwan? Well, you look at the semi chip manufacturing and how all of our military technology is created. The contract, the 5G nanochips, is done by TSMC, Taiwanese Semi Chip Manufacturing, TSCM, whatever they're called. And they're based out of, you guessed it, Taiwan. All the major military equipment that we have based out of Taiwan. That's where all the nanochips are created. So what do? We sign this bill, it's like $70 billion to stimulate foreign investment into America so that people like Samsung, who have the other 5G nanochip technology, capable of meeting our military grade requirements, invest in America. They build a bunch of manufacturing sites in America. TSCM builds in America. They're building outside of Phoenix right now. And then you also have Dell trying to catch up because they've been behind the game for quite some time. There's a couple other players as well that are vying for that top spot. But once China actually decides to take over Taiwan, whether it be economically or by military force, I think personally it'll be economically. China's not big on the whole military force thing because it doesn't really benefit them in terms of the long run, the 100-year plan. If you haven't read that book, it's China's plan for world global dominance. Once again, people forget China's been around since the beginning of time, not the country China, but the nations, the people of China. And so they know what they're doing when it comes to the long game. Which brings me to my next point. Currently, here in the United States, with the open borders, the fentanyl crisis, you look at the Dutch and the Chinese in the 1400s and the Opium Wars, and it's literally the exact same thing that's taking place with more of a current modern twist in terms of geopolitical dynamics. You got the cartels involved, you got some Eastern European mafia involved. The point is that, which by the way, I would say our own administration is tied in with all of that. However, I digress too. Open borders allows terrorists in, allow the flow of drugs, human trafficking, which, by the way, Ukraine also is a major proponent of human trafficking because it was the number one place of trafficked humans in the world. Then, what do you know? Trump administration came in, closed down the borders. Human trafficking was down by like 90 some percent, 90 some percent. And then, what do you know? We just opened it right back up. Ukraine gets invaded. What an ironic coincidence to feed all this pedophilia garbage going on across the world with these high political elites and these political elites, these George Soros type people who with their weird satanic pedophile cults. Point is that everything pouring into the United States right now, there's a bunch of terrorists coming in. There's a bunch of unvetted drug mixes coming in with the fentanyl. What's it doing? It is neutering us from the inside out. We're rotting from the inside out, which is exactly what the Chinese would do to any sort of enemy. It's what they want to do. I forget what they call it. They say you don't poke the sleeping dragon with a sword from the outside. You feed it something and it rots from the inside. That's basically what the concept is. So what is China doing? They're flooding all this fentanyl in, killing our youth. They're pushing all this gender neutral boys can be girls, girls can be boys, stupid ideology. I mean, you're such an idiot if you actually freaking think this stuff. X and Y chromosomes, ladies and gents, follow the science, but not when it's not beneficial to your stupid narrative. So the point is that now we're creating a bunch of genderless society, a bunch of eunuchs who have no masculinity, no ability to stand up, no traditional household values. It's all being flushed in social media and priming and programming your brain when you hear it over and over repetitively. And we're actually ostracizing people, which is a classic indoctrination move by communist regimes historically in order to cause people who are following the crowd and not following the crowd. You wear the Jewish star, you don't wear the Jewish star. You wear the mask, you don't wear the mask. You get the shot, you don't get the shot. You believe in woke, you don't believe in woke. All it's doing is dividing us while neutering our masculinity, which is the ability to stand up with creative thought against some sort of other force, external exogenous force, and believe and uphold our traditional morals and values. Then you look at a country like China, they're the most traditional moral and value nation on the face of the planet. Yet here in America, we're falling apart. Education system sucks. Economy's collapsing. Borders are open. We have no foreign policy, no foreign influence. Why? Well, it kind of all started when we started propagating this bullshit message of, hey, boys can have babies and girls can be boys. No, they can't, plain and simple. And that also leads to a sense of purposelessness and confusion, erraticism, more social isolation, which then therefore compounds itself into more violence within public, active shooter incidents that we happen to see. So now we're just shooting each other at crazy rates, mass genocide essentially taking place internally to our own society, while at the same time, we're allowing China to influence all of our major education institutions with millions, tens of millions of dollars of unvetted donations or undocumented or whatever they call it after a certain amount. There's a term for it. And out of the 600,000 roughly foreign exchange students, like 60% of them are all from China. So what? The dictatorship, Communist Party of China is just so infatuated with American morals and values that they happen to want their people to be indoctrinated with capitalist ideology? No, not at all. They're doing it as a way to understand our legal system so that they could literally sue for property rights, for business rights, for intellectual property rights while stealing it all, while bribing our professors. And this isn't all bullshit. You can see it all in all these professors that get arrested for espionage and all these corporate executives who are arrested for espionage. All these things are verifiable if you just go and do the research and check it out, which I right now today in this episode don't have the time to be doing. This is just an overview of what you can expect from this podcast specifically. However, I digress even further back to the fact that we are rotting out from the inside with American institutional morals and values. And it is all being externally influenced by people like China, Russia, Iran, and it's being further exacerbated by our internal corrupt political system, political structure. Any politician who's been in for more than 15 years needs to get the hell out. There needs to be term limitations on everything. Absolutely everything. Congress should not be able to have secret meetings that we, the people, are not privy to the information on. It's 2023, almost 24. It's the information age. We should be able to sit in on all these meetings. We should know what bills are getting passed. They should not be allowed to pass bills at midnight that are 600 pages long. That's insane bullshit. And this is exactly how societies happen to fall apart. You push these confusing, ridiculous, time wasting gender ideology confusion. You start to socially isolate and get them where on the fucking boob tube, the computer screen, social media, which elevates the neurochemical disposition in their body for feel good. Then you hit them with some hate. Feel good, hit them with some hate. Then now they're sucked into it based off of their sympathetic nervous system survival mechanisms because we're tied into it. If it bleeds, it reads. We get all the news stations pushing the same narrative, which is incongruence with what we are bribing the educational institutions to push out to all the youth that are coming up, watching TikTok all day long, getting it from the most elite Ivy League universities and colleges, while systematically crumbling at our own internal economy by inflation rates going up, gas prices, fuel energy costs going up, sending all of our money overseas to support wars that we have nothing to even do with, while kicking all the healthy people out of our military who refuse these vaccinations, while poisoning all of our people with these vaccinations that happen to just not be in conjunction with the highest rate of sudden adult death syndrome, not correlated whatsoever at all. And while flooding all these pain killing meds into our system, kids are addicted to drugs, overdosing left and right. You can't be man because that's masculine toxicity. And then now we are just falling apart from the outside, from the inside, all over. And it all, ladies and gentlemen, starts with you, the individual, and being able to have mental and emotional resiliency, which means that you must be physically strong in order to push yourself into that mental resiliency, which means that you must remain consistent at it in order to develop the emotional resiliency so that you can be educated and make your own choices, which is why I'm here today doing this all with the Lethality Lifestyle, with the Lethal Lifestyle podcast. Lethal lifestyle is a way of life. It's not just about having deadly skills and being able to use justified violence in defense of yourself or others. It's about your mindset, your belief systems, that of positivity, love, contribution, beautifying all things in your life and everything that is around you by showing others the way to move forward. It's the Bushido, it's the Japanese way of the warrior, it's the way of the samurai, then how you must contribute to society in a positive, loving manner. However, have the means to defend oneself with great violence whenever you are pushed to that in a justified way. We don't want violence. I'm an anti-violence advocate who teaches people how to be violent in justified times of necessity. I hate violence. It's disgusting. Every dead body I've ever stood over, I just thought to myself, why? And I always will. Life is so fragile and beautiful, yet we just throw it away so frivolously. So, in summation, that is what you can expect out of the Lethal Lifestyle podcast, ladies and gents. If this is for you, join in, follow, like, subscribe, whatever it is that we could do to push this message out to people, because I guarantee I'm going to be censored probably right after this first episode, and continual censorship is going to take place probably moving forward forever with somebody like myself. So reach out if you want me to talk about specific topics. I've got a whole slew of stuff coming up. John Asseroff, Tony Blauer, Janine Stollard, Kit Taylor, neurologists, nutritionists, physical fitness coaches. I mean, it's just going to be off the charts, the amount of experts that I'm bringing into this so that you could be as educated, as strong, and as resilient as possible to be the best example for your family, your friends, your life, your community, yourself, and live a life of absolute abundance. All right, everyone, take care. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be safe with the knives. See ya.